In our headlines on this Thursday afternoon, May 30th, here on the Korean Peninsula. North Korea launches some 10 short-range ballistic missiles into the EC early on this Thursday morning and continues to attempt to disrupt GPS signals on South Korean border islands. Meanwhile, South Korea and the United Arab Emirates ink well over a dozen deals to bolster their partnership in a number of strategic arenas, ranging from energy to artificial intelligence. And on the local front, medical school seats have been expanded by 1,497 to bring the total for the academic year of 2025 to 4,610 across 39 colleges nationwide. We start with news of several short-range ballistic missile launches by North Korea early Thursday morning, following its recent floating of waste-carrying balloons into South Korea after a failed satellite mission on Monday night. Our Yoon reports.
North Korea launched around 10 short-range ballistic missiles on Thursday morning toward the EC from the western city of Sunan. Detected at around 6:14 a.m. by South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff, the missiles are estimated to have traveled around 350 kilometers. The JCS strongly condemned the launch, calling it a provocation that seriously threatens peace and stability on the Korean peninsula.
Regarding the launch of ballistic missiles by North Korea today, we conclude that it, as well as the sending balloons carrying waste that were sent into the south, are an effort to deflect away from the failed attempt to launch a spy satellite into orbit on Monday.
The military added it immediately captured, tracked, and monitored the missile launches and shared related information with the US and Japan. The launch also comes less than 2 weeks since its last ballistic missile provocation. The regime's missile provocation follows the sending of hundreds of balloons with trash and excrement attached across the border on Tuesday night. In a statement distributed through the Korean Central News Agency on Wednesday, Kim Yo-jong, the North Korean leader's sister, called the balloons sincere gifts to South Korea. North Korea last weekend had warned it would retaliate against anti-Pyongyang campaigners in the south. The United Nations Command also condemned the North's move and announced Wednesday that it is conducting a formal investigation into the deployment of contaminated objects capable of causing harm. Yoon, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, prospects of placing tactical American nuclear weapons back here in South Korea have been raised at the U.S. Senate. Our Lee Seung-jae explains.
Amid nuclear threats posed by North Korea, a ranking member of the U.S. Senate Armed Services Committee on Wednesday raised the idea of deploying U.S. tactical nuclear weapons to South Korea to increase deterrence against the regime. Republican Senator Roger Wicker made the proposal in a report titled 21st Century Peace Through Strength, a generational investment in the U.S. military, in which he said the North continues to outpace expectations about its nuclear and missile programs with capabilities to target the U.S. mainland. He added that as there is no immediate diplomatic solution at the moment, Washington must ensure that deterrence does not erode on the Korean peninsula. According to Wicker, this means maintaining readiness with regular joint military exercises between South Korea and the U.S. and a persistent U.S. military presence on the Korean peninsula, but also potentially nuclear sharing agreements and the redeployment of U.S. tactical nuclear weapons on the Korean peninsula. The Republican senator also added that the security challenge in the Indo-Pacific region has become more complicated due to Pyongyang's growing ties with Beijing and Moscow. He said that international sanctions had once crippled the North Korean economy, but are now ineffective as Russia and China use their veto powers as permanent members of the UN Security Council to help the North evade more sanctions. More importantly, North Korea's strategic alignment with its traditional allies now provides a steady source of revenue, as Wicker called North Korea, a source of global instability well beyond the Korean peninsula. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
And given those concerns, South Korea and the United Arab Emirates have strongly condemned North Korea's ballistic missile launches, including its latest satellite attempt. The condemnation was shared in a joint statement following Wednesday's summit between President Yoon Suk-yeol and his UAE counterpart, Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan. The statement was made public on this Thursday and voiced much concern over Pyongyang's persistent provocations and its nuclear threats that undermine regional peace and stability. It also urged the regime to return to dialogue with relevant parties, to prioritize diplomatic solutions and to surrender its nuclear weapons ambitions. Separately, on the bilateral front, Seoul and Abu Dhabi have penned well over a dozen deals to bolster their partnership in a number of strategic arenas ranging from energy to artificial intelligence. Our senior correspondent Oh Soo-young has details.
South Korea and the United Arab Emirates have inked a bilateral free trade agreement and agreed to bolster cooperation on investment, energy, nuclear power and defence, while jointly advancing artificial intelligence across all areas. This came at a bilateral summit in Seoul on Wednesday between President Yoon and UAE President Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan. Just 1 year and 4 months after their previous summit in Abu Dhabi, a total of 19 bilateral deals and documents were signed to enhance their special strategic partnership. First, the two countries signed their comprehensive economic partnership agreement, South Korea's first bilateral free trade agreement with a Middle East country, which will lower tariffs on all goods traded by more than 91% within a 10-year term. Setting out 14 areas of cooperation, including supply chains, energy, digital and biotechnology. The trade deal is expected to expand market access for South Korea's online gaming firms and medical services. As the two countries proceed with their agreement last year to cooperate on strategic investment, with the UAE president pledging $30 billion into Korean firms, the two sides inked a deal to broaden the channels for investment to involve more non-state institutions. Some $6 billion of investment opportunities in Korea are also under review. Also, to enhance energy security and transition to the post-oil era. The two sides agreed to bolster their cooperation in the traditional and clean energy sectors. South Korean firms signed a letter of intent with the Abu Dhabi National Oil Company, providing the basis for them to receive orders for at least 6 LNG ships worth around $1.5 billion. The two governments, meanwhile, signed memorandums of understanding to increase joint crude oil storage and establish a support system for producing clean hydrogen. Based on the construction of the Baraka nuclear power plant, Korea's first export of a homegrown commercial nuclear plant, the two sides agreed to level up collaboration in nuclear energy. Furthermore, they will continue discussions to strengthen long-term and strategic defense and cooperation on defense technology. A South Korean presidential official said the two sides are working on increasing the UAE's defensive capabilities through various arms talks. Furthermore, the two countries will jointly foster innovation in artificial intelligence through corporate research and talent exchanges.
Based on our special strategic partnership forged in 2019, the two countries over the past year have focused on 4 main areas of cooperation. Through this state visit, the scope is being expanded to cooperation on cutting-edge technology, including artificial intelligence.
Based on their evolving bilateral relations, the two sides will jointly expand into third countries, including African nations, in the fields of energy infrastructure and nuclear power, as well as strengthen cooperation on climate action on a multilateral level. With the UAE being South Korea's only special strategic partner in the Middle East, Yoon's office said it hopes the Leaders' Summit will provide tangible outcomes that improve people's livelihoods in both South Korea and the UAE. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
In other news, President Yoon Suk-yeol will send an official delegation to partake in the inauguration ceremony of El Salvadoran President Nayib Bukele on June 1st. According to the top office on this Thursday, the delegation will include former Land Minister Won Hee-ryong and ruling party lawmaker Kang Min-guk. They will deliver a letter from President Yoon to President Bukele, congratulating the latter on his second term in office and sharing hopes for greater bilateral exchanges. The two countries established diplomatic relations back in the year 1962. In the Middle East, Israel's military says it has established operational control over a strategic buffer zone along the border between Gaza and Egypt. Israel Defense Forces spokesman Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari announced on Wednesday that Israeli troops had taken control over part of the Rafah border area and found tunnels used by Hamas to smuggle weapons into Gaza. The claim was contradicted by Egyptian media, citing sources who asserted that Israel was simply seeking to justify its military campaign in Rafah. Seoul's Education Ministry has unveiled its medical school quota guidelines for the academic year of 2025, and the medical arena is reaffirming its strong opposition. Our Park Gonu has more.
Admission guidelines for the increased medical school quota in South Korea next year were announced by the Education Ministry on Thursday. The guidelines include a total increase of 1,497 students compared to the year before, across 39 colleges nationwide. The new total is 4,610, and the figure is irreversible. Specifically compared to the year before, around 900 more students living in non-capital regions will be able to enter medical schools located where they live. Colleges are expected to release their own detailed guidelines as scheduled on Friday to reflect the fixed quota. The Korean Medical Association responded by saying it would hold a candlelight rally Thursday night under the slogan of "A death sentence for the Korean medical system," to protest against the government's plans that they say have led to the collapse of the medical system. These rallies will be held in areas across the country, including Seoul, Busan, and Daegu. On Wednesday, the government reiterated its calls for junior doctors to return to work, noting some have already done so, while also saying doctors who go back to work now will face fewer penalties.
Don't hesitate and return to your hospitals for your patients, your fellow medical staff, and also your future. The government will do its best to keep penalties on those who return at a minimum. There will be firm differences between those who return and those who do not.
Nearly 700 trainee doctors working at 100 major training hospitals were reported to be at their workplaces as of Tuesday, an increase of 122 compared to last month. Looking at all 211 training hospitals nationwide, around 7% of the total number of trainee doctors are currently working. Also on Wednesday, Prime Minister Han Duck-soo said an additional $56 million of funding had been agreed at a cabinet meeting the day before for hospitals to bolster their emergency medical services. That's on top of the $94 million already given to support recruitment, salaries, and running costs. The additional funds will be used to support extra pay and educational fees for nurses who have been filling in for doctors under the supervision of consultants. Park Gonu, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, on the local political front, the 22nd National Assembly enters office today, and its first plenary session has been scheduled for next Wednesday, that is June 5th. Now, 300 lawmakers will begin their 4-year term, with opposition lawmakers holding 192 seats and their ruling counterparts accounting for 108 seats. A vote on the National Assembly Speaker will take place during the first plenary session, with the main opposition Democratic Party's Woo Won-shik set to be elected. A formal opening ceremony will be held after all standing committee chairs have been named. Survivors of the Sewol Ferry sinking, including bereaved family members, will see their support for medical expenses from the government extended for 5 more years. Our political correspondent Ishi, who covers this and more.
South Korea's cabinet on Wednesday passed a revision to the Special Act on Remedy for Damage caused by the April 16 Sewol Ferry Disaster, meant to extend the support period for those affected by the 2014 tragedy. The revision extends the period of medical expense assistance for those affected by the accident by 5 more years. In the original version of the Act and its enforcement decree, survivors of the disaster and family members of victims could receive support for related medical needs for a period of 10 years, which ended on April 15th of this year. The opposition lawmakers at the parliament proposed a change to this, citing the disaster's lasting physical and psychological impact. Then on Tuesday, they passed the revised version of the Act amid a ruling party walkout during what was the 21st National Assembly's final plenary session. The cabinet on Wednesday passed this revision, but suggested a presidential veto for 4 other bills that were unilaterally passed by the opposition camps at the National Assembly, including one expanding support for real estate fraud victims. Prime Minister Han Duck-soo explained the cabinet's decision, citing the need to ensure, quote, financial viability of the government and to prevent a potential burden on the people. Within several hours, President Yoon vetoed the 4 bills as requested by the cabinet. Lee Si-hook, Arirang News.
Mentoring, it's a powerful practice for professional advancement. And here in Korea, behind a number of renowned screen productions is a common mentorship program. Our culture correspondent Song Yoo-jin tells us more.
Occult horror movie Exuma and light-hearted K-drama Extraordinary Attorney Woo might not seem like they have much in common. But they were created by individuals who experienced the magic touch of the creative mentoring program for young professionals. Hosted by the Culture Ministry and organized by the Korea Creative Content Agency, this program is now in its 13th year.
We started this program to give new creative talents one-on-one hands-on training with top industry professionals, helping them take their skills to the next level.
This year, a total of 300 mentees were selected across broadcast, film, music, games, cartoons, performing arts, and other creative fields. They will have the opportunity to learn from some of the best in their field through mentoring sessions and workshops.
I usually work alone on my music, but joining this program will let me get valuable feedback from top-notch mentors. Plus, the financial support means I can focus more on my music without stressing about making a living.
For some, this project has been a life-changing journey. Take Lee Shin-hwa, for example, the screenwriter of the popular 2019 baseball drama Hot Stove Lee.
My mentor was the legendary screenwriter Chung Sung-ju, who wrote Secret Love Affair. He gave me stern but helpful feedback and even treated me to meals. I consider my other mentor the grandfather of Hot Stove League. When I showed him the initial draft, he saw its potential and gave me advice on how to write a good sports drama.
For the mentors, it's an opportunity to discover fresh talent and share their insights.
I believe that technological trends shape how media content evolves, changing the way we direct and tell stories. Right now, it's AI. If the mentees think about how these technologies could influence future content, I am sure they'll create amazing work.
During the selection process, we saw that each applicant's portfolio brought a unique and fresh perspective, even if it wasn't perfect. I'm excited to work with these promising talents and see what we can achieve together.
With a shared passion for creating exceptional content, mentors and mentees will work together until November, aiming to open a bright new chapter in the world of K-content. Song Yoo-jin, Arirang News.
A local research team has developed a solvent-resistant membrane, raising the possibility of recycling semiconductor solvents. Our Yoon explains.
In the process of completing the production of the integrated circuits of semiconductors, a solvent called methylpyrrolidone is used. This is a solvent that's used in a variety of industries, including pharmaceuticals and industrial and domestic cleaning. In the final steps of production, this solvent needs to be filtered out by a separator and is then discarded. But existing molecular separation membranes have not been able to resist the harshness of highly toxic solvents, which means some 2 million tons of such organic solvents go to waste in a year. But now, a team of local researchers have developed a high-performance, solvent-resistant membrane from polybenzimidazole, a synthetic fiber which has also been dubbed a superplastic. In molecular separation, the permeability and selectivity of membranes are critical for efficient separation. Compared to existing membranes, test results showed a 78% increase in permeability, which indicates the efficiency of organic solvent discharge after filtering, as well as a 34% increase in selectivity, which indicates the filtering efficiency of the membrane. The new membrane was placed in a container of harsh solvents for over 3 weeks, and it showed resistance.
Organic solvents like alcohol can be filtered through separator membranes, but harsh solvents can damage the separator. Now, the separator membrane that this research has developed can withstand such solvents without being damaged.
The greatest advantage that comes from this latest development is that organic solvent that is mostly imported does not need to go to waste and can be reused, making it economically and environmentally friendly. The research team aims to commercialize the new membrane by 2026. This study was published in the Journal of Membrane Science and Research, which is an international academic journal that specifically focuses on the science of separation membranes. 이은진, Arirang News.
Let's take a look at the latest news in the world now. After more than 5 weeks of testimonies and reviews of evidence, a New York justice instructed a panel of 12 jurors to begin deliberations on Wednesday for the former U.S. President Donald Trump's criminal hush money trial. Following Tuesday's presentation of closing arguments to jurors, Justice Juan Merchan delivered over an hour of deliberation instructions to jurors, explaining each of the charges and the key details of the alleged crime. He also stressed that the jurors must agree on guilt beyond a reasonable doubt if Trump is to be prosecuted on any of the 34 counts of falsifying business records in hush money payments to adult film star Stormy Daniels. The panel of 12 New Yorkers will soon make the historic decision of whether Trump is found guilty or not guilty of felony charges. All 12 members of the jury must agree for a verdict to be reached. If the jurors cannot reach a unanimous agreement, a hung jury may lead to a mistrial. U.S. oil giant ConocoPhillips has agreed to buy Marathon Oil in a $22.5 billion deal, an acquisition that adds over 2 billion barrels of reserves to its portfolio. Houston-based ConocoPhillips made an all-stock offer equating to over $30 per Marathon share, paying a premium of almost 15% on the stock's closing price on Tuesday. Marathon Oil, which operates in North Dakota and Texas, has been a prime target for U.S. oil companies looking to increase their inventory. The deal on Wednesday is the latest in a wave of consolidation in the U.S. oil and gas industry, such as ExxonMobil's acquisition of Pioneer Natural Resources announced in October, and Chevron's $53 billion merger with Hess, which was approved by shareholders on Tuesday. According to ConocoPhillips, the acquisition of Marathon Oil is expected to save some $500 million in costs within the first full year. A volcano in southwestern Iceland erupted on Wednesday, spewing lava and smoke for the 5th time since December. The eruption began in the early afternoon, following a series of earthquakes to the north of the coastal town of Grindavik. The town of 3,800 people had been largely evacuated in December. The Icelandic Meteorological Office said that the eruption shot lava as high as 50 meters into the sky from a fissure 3.5 kilometers in length. 2 out of 3 roads leading into Grindavik were cut off by lava, but barriers built around the town managed to prevent lava from reaching the 3rd road. Local police said that evacuation orders were given out early in the day for anyone remaining in Grindavik. Kim Seong, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. After some abundant sunshine over the last couple of days, we're getting a break from the sun in most parts of Korea. Afternoon highs should go down, but not that much. Despite cloudy skies, south of Jeju and southeastern regions will see very high UV rays again. However, the rest of the country will have relatively lower UV rays, but still we need to wear a good amount of sunblock today. Morning temperatures were slightly higher than the same time yesterday. Then highs should be similar to a tad lower, topping out at 26 degrees here in Seoul and Daejeon. Busan should be slightly warmer this afternoon, topping out at 25 degrees. Air quality will be normal to good nationwide all day, but the ozone level could rise in certain parts of the country. Sunshine returns tomorrow morning, but it will rain on Jeju. Then Gangwon-do looks like being rainy on Sunday. Meanwhile, temperatures will hover right around the season norms for the next 5 days. With that in mind, let's take a look at the international weather conditions.
And those are the headlines at this hour here in Korea. Coming up next is our daily panel session, so do stay with us. Thank you for now.